Can you hear me now? Wow, the power of technology. Is the episode 1 is the worst one? Is that what it is? Or I can't remember. All right, I guess. So everybody had lunch, a little bit tired, right? So we need to get up. No, I'm just kidding. Somebody suggested we do calisthenics and stretch and all this stuff. But I'll try to be energetic for you guys. You don't have to. So this talk is a little bit different from every typical web components talk. And believe me, there's a few of them out there now. Just go search web components talk, and you will see a bunch of them. Because I'm going to ask deep questions like, why are we here, right? Why are you guys here? We have no clue. But why are we doing what we're doing, right? Why do we do things that we do? Well, I'm doing because I want to make a bunch of money and retire in Swiss Alps, right? Is that what we're doing? That sounds good, reasonable? Maybe write a little science fiction, space opera type stuff. Okay, no. Well, the reason why we do these things is because we want to solve problems. We want to help users. We want to make it easier, make life better, change the world, some of us say. Some of us like, oh, I can't do the whole world, but I'll change a little bit of it. And so about 5 years ago now, I basically was a young web developer who just joined the Chrome team. And I was really getting into this whole web development and browser development thing. And I was like, oh my God, I have superpowers. I can change the browser. It was awesome. And so I started looking around, and I realized something important, that great platforms have one framework. Terrible platforms have none. And web platform has a bunch. And the reason why we have so many is because all of these frameworks are really made by pissed off people. People don't make frameworks because they're happy. Like, oh my God, I have extra time. I'm going to go and build another web framework. People build frameworks because they're sad and upset, and this thing does not work, and they're like, okay, I'm going to not do this again over and over. I'm going to codify this into something, and hey, maybe some other person will benefit from it. Changing the world type thing, right? Are you guys with me? So really, with this goal, I kind of said, okay, so if these frameworks are all cries for help, what kind of help do they need? And this really was the venture that began back then and ended up being the thing called web components. And web components really is about solving several problems, and I'm going to try to go through them with you. And this is just tip of the iceberg, but I have 30 minutes. I can probably talk about this for days. And I won't. Instead, I have 30 minutes. And so one of the first problems that I've encountered, and something that people do all the time, is that composing things is hard. Composition is like the foundational thing of software engineering, right? You have a bunch of people working on software. Your team consists of more than one person sometimes. And you're all working on achieving success, and then things have to come together and ship. And then it's like success turns into not success because nothing fits. And so composing things is generally really hard. And in the web platform, especially in the web, we've always done this really weird thing where it's a very common pattern. I'm going to call it render and decorate, but you probably have your own name. And that is the idea is that, instead of keeping everything in one large DOM tree, you separate things out, and you bring them into smaller chunks, and you make those chunks separate, and you keep them aside. And so, for example, imagine there's a very large DOM tree there. I'm not going to bore you with details. Just go into Gmail and open Inspector and look at it, and you'll see it right there. And so render and decorate goes like this. Hey, instead of my actual widget on the page, I'm going to put a little div there as a marker. And then later, when it's time for me to inflate this marker, I'm going to do a magic incantation. We call it apply instances. And then we're going to query selector all. By the way, if you guys don't know JavaScript and can't follow me along, I apologize. You probably are in the wrong conference. But nevertheless, that's all I have. And then you just, you do something like you create a template, you create a widget template there, you put stuff in it, and you blow it up, and everything looks wonderful, right? Except, what is the problem? When you go back into the inspector and you look at the, all right, hang on. Turns out, well, when you look at the tree, it's all back together in the one big tree, right? So now you can no longer think of these widgets as separate things. You're thinking of them as one large, big DOM tree in the document. And so to solve this problem, we came up with this neat thing called Shadow DOM. And Shadow DOM allows us to add one line to this code. Just one line right here. But what this line does, you guys can see it? You guys with me? Is it now keeps all of this tree right here in this thing as a separate little subtree. So now I can still move it around. I can still reason about it by itself. It's no longer a part of a larger whole, but at the same time it renders as the same widget right there, right? You guys with me? So what we did is effectively solved the DOM composition. So developers out in the field or working as a team no longer need to worry about a large DOM tree as the final result. They can still think of all of these pieces as separate little chunks of code and chunks of trees, and then compose them together as one, as a big, large, beautiful document or an app or whatever you guys decide to build next. Are you guys with me? Yes? Right. Well, right after this, we ran into this next problem that is a little bit more interesting, and actually we've gotten so Stockholm syndromed into it. We go like, no, it's okay, it's not a big deal, we're all right. And that problem is called CSS. All right? There was this Comet Lander thing on Google Plus or Twitter that you guys have seen probably. We can land the thing on the comet, but can't position the box on CSS. And really, the biggest beautiful problem with CSS is that CSS is a wonderful bit of machinery that allows us to separate concerns of style and presentation from the concerns of structure. But it also is all or nothing thing. So for a larger web app, this becomes a really weird, spooky action at a distance thing where you have to basically say, hey, I actually have 1,000 widgets in my doc or in my app, but all of them ultimately feed from one style sheet. And it's somewhere there. And actually, I'm going to pretend that there are multiple style sheets, but no, there's still one style sheet. So once you change a thing, it becomes this weird thing. It's like, am I going to break anything? I don't know. If I did, what am I going to do now? And so here's a simple illustration of the problem. I'm just going to take this thing and say, hey, I'm just going to add this little div down below over there. And I want it to be red. And it's very simple. You have top here, I have div here. And so all I need to do is put like this simple selector there, div top, div div. Dope. Because of the render and decorate that comes after the fact, that is not visible on my tree right there, the widget title is also red. And that's where the wonderful bang important comes in, right? You go like, okay, specificity. I need to remember the numbers, 0, 1, 10. Anybody can rattle off the bat what the specificity rules are? That's okay. It's all right. Because we can actually solve this for you. And we did this with the web components with the same line of code. It's the same line of code that we had before. And the beautiful part here is that CSS is scoped inside of the shadow tree. So whatever you write inside of the tree, CSS is encapsulated inside of it. So nothing leaks in, nothing leaks out. You don't have to start reasoning about global thing and how the global style sheet applies to this widget, because all these things are completely separate. As you can see, the widget is no longer red. the widget title. Awesome? Yes! Yes! And trust me, when you start building with Shadow DOM, one of the amazing things happens is your selectors get simple. You no longer write this really weird train, wacky train of wagons that is like plus div dot blah pound foo, and it's like, no, everything is just pound foo or pound blah and div dot whatever, and it's very simple because you no longer think in a global document, a global app sense. You no longer have to worry, oh, will the next state change affect what I have just done with the style sheet? You basically think about it as, hey, I'm working inside of my widget. And that's all I need to worry about. And I'm OK. And nobody's going to mess my stuff up. Right? So we solved, don't do that. We solved 2 problems. There's still a bunch of them remaining. Let's go ahead and start solving all of them. And the common thing is the house of divs that we have, or Jacob's ladder, whatever you call this thing, is like this amazing thing where we just soup up our document with div, div. And sometimes it's like, oh, I wish I could use a button here, but because IE or something, I need to use a div for my button as well. So everything is a div. Yay! Well, no, it's not really OK, right? Because even in the solution that I said, oh, I made it better. This is much better. I still go, look, this is div class my widget. Why can't I just call it what it is? Why can't I just say, look, this is my widget. This is not div class my widget. This is my widget. And turns out there's a thing we invented called custom elements that allows us to do this. And custom elements is really neat. It basically says, HTML, it's been a pleasure. But it's time for me to start saying things the way I mean them, right? Saying what you mean. Alex Russell invented this. Alex Russell, everybody. Say what you mean. And the basic idea is this. You just declare a new tag. You just register a new tag with the HTML parser. You proclaim, you suddenly have this power and say, I'm going to extend HTML. I don't have to be the spec editor. I don't have to be a browser implementer. I just call this thing called document.registerElement, give it my tag, name, and provide a prototype. And suddenly, a bunch of code falls away. No longer I have to do this apply instances thing. I don't need to do this anymore. Because as the parser encounters my widget, it will invoke a thing called a created callback, which is effectively a lifecycle callback for the HTML element, and it will run this code for me. So effectively, I'm saying, hey, HTML parser, do something useful for a change instead of just spitting out stuff and objects. Create my objects for me, instantiate them, so I don't have to come behind and decorate them with something. Create them as they are, as they were meant to be. And so this allows me to effectively remove the extra calls at the end here that were present that says apply instances thing. I don't need to do this anymore. It's all now a part of the created callback of the HTML element. So now I've invented my own tag. I gave it behavior. It's not just about new tags, right? It's about making parser do the work of instantiating things. So now HTML parser that runs as fast as it could possibly go not only just spits out objects of predefined shape, it can spit out your objects as well. And you can build entire object trees, and you will see in a few minutes how this happens and what kind of magic you can achieve with this stuff. So yes, awesome, right? Custom tags. And finally, let's just turn this knob one more time and say, well, this was really fun, but Dmitry, this still looks a little wonky. You're still doing things that look somewhat unpalatable, like you're doing things like creating document object tree using JavaScript and mashing strings together. That seems bad. Can we fix that? And the answer, I guess you kind of figured that one out, right? The answer is yes, we can. And the way we do it is with a special thing called a template. Template is a magical HTML tag. Everybody, after you leave here, if you've not played with the template, go play with it. It's awesome. Because what it does is it gives you nothing. Not in the bad sense, but in the good sense. Things inside of the template do nothing. They are inert. They're like the Han Solo thing in Frozen in Time, or whatever that thing. I can't remember the compound, but it obviously was some sort of amazing stuff. And so once you put things in here inside of this template right there, styles will not apply, images won't load, videos won't play, things are inert. They're basically like, it's parsed, it's there. It's ready to be stamped out, but it doesn't do anything. And that allows us to, instead of doing this crap right here, look at that, that's a lot of code. Break it down to this, where we basically say, hey, widget template, all we're doing is just creating a template, getting it out of the tree, and then stamping it out right there. Does that make sense? Templates are wonderful. Not to say that everything else is wonderful as well, but these are pretty awesome things. Still, this looks okay, right? Now we have all of our HTML in the HTML space, all of our JavaScript in JavaScript space, but you say, Dimitri, yes, I am channeling Emerald Lagasse here. Dimitri, why are templates in my document now? How can you help me get rid of them? Because if this is a large app, won't there be like a bunch of templates hanging around in that thing? Wouldn't that be kind of bad? And then this JavaScript seems to be like just somewhat sitting by itself. That seems bad, right? Well, we can fix that. And that's why we came up with this thing called HTML imports. HTML imports. HTML imports are amazing because they allow you to create HTML files that you can do what? Import. That is pretty cool. So as you can see here, this is our template right there. And there's our JavaScript code right there. All right? And then we import it using this very simple, very familiar looking line that's called link rel import. Instead of style sheet, you're importing HTML. You're importing, instead of styles, you're importing markup. And so what happens is now your app suddenly does not have to look like a bunch of stuff. It can be now separated, and you can build dependency trees out of it. And by the way, link rel import, HTML imports provide dependency management. That's very nice. So all deduping happens. So if you include it twice in different places, you will only get one instance. So it does really well. And it also allows you to start reasoning about larger apps in a much, much simpler frame of mind. OK? So there's our import. And there's our final result. HTML imports, everybody. The neat thing is these building blocks are just the beginning of what can happen and what will happen. By giving developers the power to harness HTML parser so that they can create their own object trees, giving them ability, giving you ability to scope your styles and to compose DOM dynamically on the fly instead of, mashing it all together. And by enabling a reasonable markup reuse scenarios with HTML imports, you open all kinds of possibilities. First of all, interoperability. This one is really crucial because every framework invents this system in slightly different and completely incompatible way with another framework. they all have to deal with reuse of elements. So widgets from one framework are not compatible with widgets in another framework because they were invented in the composition model was invented in a slightly different way. When DOM is your composition model, when Shadow DOM is this kind of the web standard, and custom elements is the standard way to compose things, everybody can now compose in using the same common lingua franca, which is web components. So that allows or enables the path to where every framework can reuse each other's widgets and things, and you don't have to think about which one is compatible with which and which one is not. It's a long road because there's lots of really strong opinions about how composition should happen. A lot of this is, again, laden with Stockholm Syndrome and understanding of the world. But the path is open. It's available now. The other thing that is pretty amazing is the fact that now the browser understands your composition model. So the rendering engine can make smarter decisions about how to do things faster for you. For example, a Shadow DOM can be a performance primitive because instead of reasoning about invalidating styles across the entire document all the time when your app has multiple pages, like a single page app type of thing, you're all confined to tiny little trees. Style calculation is much faster and much more predictable. So hitting those 60 frames per second becomes a more real and achievable goal. And things like HTML imports are also really cool because parsing of HTML, turns out, many browsers do on a separate thread. So you could potentially start loading multiple imports, and they would be doing all the work of parsing and tokenizing and creating those DOM or creating loading those imports in parallel. And so you could gain performance benefits just from that. And the third and pretty most important thing is that all these primitives are designed in such a way that they provide the developers, especially developers of frameworks, a better framework, better way of thinking about coordinating actions. Instead of arbitrary points at which your components or your divs become components, there is now predefined checkpoints like microtasks. And there is a callback queues and execution of those callback queues that is defined in a spec. So you can now reason about how much work do I need to be doing now, how much work do I need to be doing later in scalable fashion. And of course, it all results in, at least in my mind, in really green circle of awesome. I'm not sure why the circle is green, but it's definitely awesome. This is about it. If you guys want to ask me a few questions, we have 6 minutes left. Yes? OK, what's the status of browser support? They are available in Chrome. And they're available in Opera, obviously. No laughing. And then Mozilla is implementing web components as well. It's right now an experimental track. But I've been talking to Microsoft folks. They're excited about it as well. So hopefully, fingers crossed, soon. There is a thing called webcomponents.js, which is a set of polyfills that allow you to take advantage of most of this functionality across browsers. What is this, IE 10 plus? So it's pretty awesome. But it's definitely native implementation has certain performance benefits. Yes, I'm sorry, you were first. Mm-hmm. Right. So HTML imports and namespacing. I have to repeat your question, obviously, for people out in the internets. I hope you're watching. I don't even know if this is the camera, but I'm assuming it is. There is no namespacing for HTML tags because there is just one HTML parser. So custom elements will be parsed according to one registry. But the notion of registry exists, and we can improve this in the future to enable multiple registries. So an import can declare and say, I have my own set of elements that I want to do on my own, and please don't touch mine. I speak my own language. As far as how it is imported into a main document, it is not important in the main document. So it just is a separate document. An import is a separate document. And the only way you import data is if you run script inside of it and you decide to do something with it. So you have to take an extra step to do that. Am I done?
Yep.
I'm done.